All right, we're going to talk about the distributive property. So the distributive property is where you can share a number to get the same amount. So it's kind of like putting two expressions together that are equal to each other, but doing that through the distributive property. So let's look at the first example. So these are equivalent expressions. These are equal to each other. And let me explain how they're equal to each other. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is over here. So we can use the distributive property so that it looks like that. And so the way that we do that is we distribute or multiply that 2 by that 5. Remember that a parentheses can also represent multiplication. You could think kind of like there's an invisible dot that's right there that I just didn't put in. So basically it means to do 2 times 5, and that's where that's coming from over here. Then we distribute again that 2 to that 4. So again, then I get 2 times 4, and that's where that comes into play. And then what you're left with is that addition sign between the two. And so this is just basic distributive property where you're multiplying the 2 by both numbers inside the parentheses to get an equivalent expression. Now, these are also both equal to each other, which means that they have the same value, they just look different. So this one would still be 2 times 9 equals 18, and then over here that would be 10 plus 8, which also equals 18. So as you can see, their value is the same. They just look different based on the distributive property. Now, you can also share the number or go the other direction where then you look at something like this and you put it into the parentheses. And the way that you do that is you look for a common factor. So as you can see, both sides has a 2. So I pull that 2 out, and that comes on the outside of the parentheses, and then you're done with those once you get that there, and then what's left goes inside the parentheses. So as you can see, I'm left with 5 plus 4, and that goes inside. So as you can see, distributive property can go both ways depending on what kind of problem you have. So let's practice some of that kind of distributing. So if you look here, I've got 7 times 6 minus 7 times 3. So this time I have a minus sign, so make sure that you're looking at your signs when you set this up. So I'm going to share that number. I'm going to try to put it in a parenthesis. So I always kind of like to write my parentheses, and then I'm going to look for a common factor. So here I have a common factor, which is 7. So that 7 goes on the outside of my parentheses. And remember, I don't need the dot because that represents multiplication. And then what's left goes inside. So as you can see, I have 6 minus 3 is left inside my parentheses. And I'm done. And I can double check to see that they both have the same value. So this would be 42 minus 21. And that equals 21. And then here I've got 6 minus 3. And 6 minus 3 is 3. And then I have 7 times 3, which also equals 21. So as you can see, their value is still the same. So I did it correctly. All right, next one. Again, we're looking for a common factor. I see that they both have 11. So the 11 is going to go on the outside of my parentheses. Okay. Then what's left goes on the inside. So I have 5 plus 7 goes on the inside. And I'm done. And let's check the value again. So here I've got 55 plus 77, and that equals 132. Over here I have 5 plus 7, which is 12. And then I do 11 times 12, which is also 132. So these are correct. Okay, let's flip our direction. So let's do this where we were multiplying and setting it up like this. Okay, remember these are equivalent expressions again. We're just using the distributive property. So this time, as you can see, my 3 is here, where here it was in the front. But it's the same process, especially when you're adding. It doesn't matter which way you go or where the 3 is. So I'm going to distribute again. That means I'm going to be multiplying 4 times 3, so that goes here. Because remember again, when there's no dot here, this represents multiplication. So we're going to do 3 times 4, and then remember I have to then distribute that 3 again over to that 12, not 12, the 2. And so again, I'm going to do 3 times 2. Okay, then I have to put the symbol that's left, which is addition, and that goes in between the 2. So I just distributed that 3 to both the 4 and the 2. Let's check to make sure they're equal to each other. So if you look here, this is 6 times 3, which is 18. And then over here we have 12 plus 6, which is also 18. So they're equal to each other. All right, last one. So let's do this one because this one has subtraction. So again, we're going to distribute that 6 to that 12. So that goes over here. Okay, then I'm going to distribute that 6 to the 1. So again, I have 6 times 1. Don't forget that that means to multiply. You could always put that dot if that helps you remember. Then I have this symbol left, which is subtraction, so that goes between the 2. Let's check the value. 12 minus 1 is 11. 11 times 6 is 66. So let's check that we have 66 over here. So I have 12 times 6 is 72 minus 6, and that is also 66. So those are equal to each other. Okay, and that's how we do the distributive property.